All right, happy Hump Day, America. Good to have you here on the program. Wednesday, the first day of October, year of our Lord, 2025. It also marks the first first day of the fiscal year for the U.S. government, October the 1st. Ladies and gentlemen, it's shut down. The government is all shut down as of this morning. Anybody feel the pain yet? I didn't. I was up early this morning, out and about, and didn't notice any of the effects of the size of the scope of government being trimmed in this partial government shutdown. Jeff says happy hump day from work on the Facebook feed, popping right up there on the screen. Shutdown hasn't affected us yet. Pretty amazing. All right, be honest, if the shutdown's affecting you, if you're dreading the shutdown, feel free. But don't you think the shutdown game has been played enough over the last 10, 25, 10, 15, 20 years that all of us kind of know it's a ruse? It's just a kind of a game that the politicians play. And when one side does it, it's their fault. When the other side does it, it's the other guy's fault. No one wants to own it. But this one is actually kind of a dumb one. I'm looking at it, studying it, going, okay, is this a typical shutdown? This is not a typical shutdown because this is this same continuing resolution that has been operating. Matter of fact, this is the continuing resolution identical to what Chucky Schumer got in trouble for in March, early in Trump's term, because right after the inauguration, people are still trying to get confirmed there's facing a government shutdown, and they passed a CR and said, hey, let's get this done by the next budget year. Well, they've gummed up the works so much in Congress that there's usually supposed to, we talk about the standard of how they used to pass a budget. There's 12 different appropriation bills, each get passed individually, and that all comes together, and that is your budget. Well, Mike Johnson and the Republicans say the reason we passed a continuing resolution is we've been trying to get things fixed here. We haven't been doing these 12 appropriation bills, and we're trying to get caught up, starting to operate more functionally. And we need a few more weeks. We've got some of them done, not all the rest of them. So let's just keep going as we are. We're not trying to cut anything, not trying to trim anything, not trying to do a rescission vote, but let's just keep it going. This is what Joe Biden had going. This is what Chuck Schumer took fire from in his own party back in March. This is the same CR. And Mike Johnson says, hey, we will have all 12 appropriation bills ready by 7, but they haven't been doing them. And so therefore they're trying to catch up. And he says, we just need a little bit more time. So we're willing to keep going the same way we've been going, the same way that Chuck Schumer said was good in March. And now Chuck Schumer says he's not good with it, and they have shut down the old government as of this morning. Now, anybody bothered by that? Anybody harmed by that? Anybody offended by that? I'm sure the government workers this morning are getting a free vacation day. I know that if it lasts a little bit longer than anticipated, it could drain your reserves if you have any in your bank account, but everybody gets the back pay. We all know how the game is played. They shut down Yellowstone. They shut down the national parks. You can't go in there because God forbid you go down there, up there. That's the stuff that they try to make it hurt the average person. But listen, members of Congress are still going to get their paychecks. Members of Congress are still in Washington, D.C., operating off their per diems or whatever they have for their travel expenses. So if anybody's really bothered by the federal shutdown, feel free to let us know. Step up to the table. Now, there is some speculation that, matter of fact, I just saw it flash on my news monitor over here. That was on Stuart Varney, I believe. And Stuart Varney said Trump has laid a trap and the Democrats have stepped right in it. Now, I don't understand all the Senate rules. I don't understand why this one requires a filibuster-proof majority, 60 plus, and why this one doesn't. Rescission. They make these rules up. All these rules are man-made. They're not necessarily in the Constitution. They're in the institution. And there's a difference between a rule in the Constitution versus a rule in the institution. There's your learning schoolyard rock moment. I did that myself. I should write a song. There's some rules that are laws that are in the Constitution, and some are just created by institutions, and institutions can create governance, and that's what the U.S. Senate has done. Well, somehow you got to have the 60 votes because it's a continuing resolution, and I think it's because it's the overall budget. I think if I understand that. But here's something I did not know, nor did I understand until the research of the program started to kick in last evening as I was going, I don't understand. They keep saying that Donald Trump has set a trap and the Democrats have walked in it. They walk in and say the Democrats are getting more than they bargained for on this one. Well, I did a little research, and yet during the government shutdown, some people say that President Trump can permanently now trim the size of government because the Trump administration has signaled intentions to go beyond the usual furloughs and utilize the shutdown period to carry out permanent layoffs. Evidently, that is in the size, the scope, and the purview of the president of the United States. Now, Obama, and even go back to Ronald Wilson Reagan, they had long periods of shutdowns and they did temporary furloughs. No one pursued the option of doing widespread layoffs, but evidently Donald Trump has said, you know what? I have the authority to do this. You're giving more power to control the government into my hands, Chucky. So you just keep doing what you do. And Donald Trump is going to use these to give everybody 60 days of advance notice that you are permanently being laid off, which means they could remain in the roles during the shutdown, quote, in the roles during the shutdown, sitting at home and get the back pay, or maybe depending on when the government reopens, they're going to get the notice that they're going to wrap it up real soon. So there's a lot of speculation as to how this is going to work out, and maybe Chuck did not bite. Consider the ramifications that he's dealing with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump usually is a pretty smart little negotiator. Donald Trump usually has a plan. Now, not that he's perfect, but I'm just saying Chuck Schumer might have bit off more than he could chew. Now, we want to talk about why he's biting off this battle. And the reason Chuck Schumer voted in March, much to the chagrin of his radical libtards in his party, he voted for it because he's always been against government shutdown. It says you should not be petulant, and just because you don't get what you want, you should not shut down the government. Well, he took immense amount of heat back in March from his party. I think even the big women on the View were talking about this. Everybody, Chuck Schumer sold us down. They're not fighting Donald Trump. And that's when there started to become speculation that maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would be challenging Chuck Schumer for his Senate seat. And if there's anything that Hakeem Jeffries and or Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries are afraid of, it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the squad, because of the energy that they bring to the party. And they're a bunch of old tired guys. And here you have these young whippersnapper, young ladies, if you can call them ladies, these women that I don't want to abuse their pronouns either. If they want to identify something else, that's their own prerogative. But you have the squad out there and they're all afraid of the squad. But let's continue to unpack why it is. So Chuck Schumer is fighting this battle. He's picking this battle only as an act of self-preservation. Chuck Schumer knows that he has to be seen as fighting Donald Trump, because if not, he's giving the perfect window for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we know her as AOC, by the way, to jump in there and challenge him in a primary challenge for his Senate seat next year in New York State. And so this is all an act of self-preservation by Chuck Schumer. That's what this is. The House is done. They keep parading Hakeem Jeffries out there as if he has a dang thing to say about it. This is done in the House. The House has already passed the CR. Hakeem Jeffries is irrelevant. He's just standing back there looking like a wingman that he and Chuck are united. But behind the scenes, there's people going, really? This is the battle you want to fight, because President Reagan oversaw several shutdowns in the 80s. This is nothing new. And he used the furloughs. He didn't do permanent layoffs. Bill Clinton faced two major shutdowns during the budget battles with Congress. 95 and 96, I believe, were those years. And those shutdowns involved furloughs of hundreds of thousands, but not permanent layoffs. Barry Obama experienced a 16-day shutdown in 2013 over the Affordable Care Act. Furloughs were common, but permanent layoffs during that shutdown were not a known practice during Trump's first term. The longest shutdown was 35 days in 2018. It also centered on a border wall funding, causing many furloughs, but no mass permanent layoffs during the shutdown. Mass permanent layoffs during a shutdown, as threatened by President Trump, represent a more aggressive and unusual approach than previous presidents have taken. So this has always been an arrow in the quiver of the executive branch, that if you want to shut down the government, fine, but I can lay off a lot of employees. Now that's an arrow in the quiver that most presidents, if they're Democrats, would not want to use, because it calls for the shrinking of the size and scope of government. But a lot of us, this is why a lot of us celebrate or say, well, sorry, it's shut down, but doggone it, we're not noticing, because most of us will never notice 35, 40 days. We're just not going to notice a government shutdown. And we're all for reducing the size and scope of government. I mean, think of this. They say that non-essential government workers have been furloughed and are sent home and not working today. Why in the heck are we paying for non-essential people? This is what these these shutdowns highlight, is that it's been going 24 hours, 24 days, whatever, and I haven't noticed the difference here. So we have non-essential people that don't affect my life, and yet we're paying them. And so this plays right into the hand of Donald Trump, according to a lot of sources out there. The Trump administration has already directed federal agencies to prepare and consider using reduction in force notices, also known as RIFs, to federal employees who is no longer funded or does not align with the president's priorities during the shutdown. So the president actually can declare what gets shut down and what doesn't. For the most part, agencies must submit any proposed RIF plans to the Office of Management and Budget for approval, and there must be a decisional memorandum documenting the need for the layoff. Federal agencies now are generally required to provide employees with at least a 60-day notice of a layoff. The authority for managing a federal workforce reductions comes through the president through his Office of Personnel Management, also known as OPM. The Supreme Court has recently cleared the path for agencies carrying out these workforce reductions in coordination with White House directives, although there are ongoing legal activities. But the bottom line is Chuck Schumer is fighting this battle in a pure self-preservation. This is just him preserving his own self, trying to avoid a challenge by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But what he could be doing is bringing about the imminent and permanent layoff of hundreds of thousands or thousands and thousands of government workers, which is okay with me, but I'm sure that's the, quote, as we would say, hashtag unintended consequences of Chuck Schumer's selfish self-preservation action. It's just so funny to see old Hakeem Jeffries standing out there with him in these press conferences, and they're angry with the president. And Hakeem Jeffries is totally irrelevant here. This has already passed the House. Hakeem Jeffries not going to get to vote on it again, but he's out there standing behind standing by Chuck Schumer, pretending this hatred and feigning this angst that he has towards Donald J. Trump. Well, if there's anybody good at trolling, it's President Donald John Trump. This guy is master level. He should do TED Talks on how to troll people on the internet. This guy is inspirational. It's aspirational what this guy does on the Twitter feed, on the Truth Social feed. And I want you to see this one because he takes the cultural appropriation and puts Hakeem Jeffries in a costume, and he's in a sombrero, and they grow great offense to that. You can't wear a sombrero. You're not a Hispanic man. Well, he wore a Hispanic in the video. Watch this. This is top level trolling. And then I want you to see the second part of it that Donald Trump put up after Hakeem Jeffries got his, let's go say he's got his panties in a knot. Once that happened, Donald Trump doubled down. Here's round one of Trump troll of Hakeem Jeffries, and Chuck Schumer is they're out there acting like they're really angry about this shutdown when it really is just a ruse for Chuck Schumer's self-preservation. If you haven't seen it, you're going to see it. It does have some language in it, so all of you with delicate sensibilities, please beware. Language warning coming up, but this is funny. You got to watch it.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
There's the troll number one. So Hakeem Jeffries goes out and says, how dare you put out this racist video? This is racist. You put me in a sombrero. It is racist. Racist. He's angry. Hakeem Jeffries angry. Here's what Donald John Trump does in response. Ladies and gentlemen, again, the guy should do TED Talks on this. And as it's been said before, I just don't think we deserve this man, Donald John Trump. We don't deserve him. We just don't. I've heard people say that before, and it's true. This is the double down on the troll of Hakeem Jeffries. Roll the tape.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
And notice who's in the mariachi band. It's old Donald John Trump himself. And all that's happening on the interweb, and it's just funny stuff. I hate to say it. They hate that they say it. Jeff says, "What do they call it when a black man does a Mexican face, or the black man puts the Mexican hat on?" I mean, this is bigotry at its finest. Ray says coffee is not good when it shoots out of the nose. I'm telling you, the guy ought to do a master class on trolling. All right, I'm going to get the question of the day. Michael Lett's going to jump in here with us as well. We're going to talk about the Pentagon, law enforcement, all sorts of fun topics with him. Coming up, but the dirty little secret of Schumer shutdown is Donald Trump can now lay off permanently a hell of a lot of employees. And I'm not sure that Schumer's self-preservation has counted that as a possibility. Anybody watch the game shows? Growing up as a game show, and I'll go to my guest here in just a second. We all grew up on game shows. I remember if you were sick from school that day, I would usually camp out on the couch, and you had a TV guide, and you'd kind of look it up. But I knew the routine. You knew there was a morning version of Wheel of Fortune. You always watch Price is Right on a sick day. But there's just certain things you do on sick days. And as a kid, they always had to do with game shows because that was what was on. And then maybe you take a nap or do something because then the game shows would slip into soap operas, and that screwed up your whole day. This is back in the day. We had 3 network channels and a couple of UHF things. So anybody remember the game shows? Which was your favorite then? And do you still watch game shows? There's a reason I asked this question. Last night, Wheel of Fortune. Now, as I got older, Wheel of Fortune moved up into the early primetime slot, and I believe it was right before the local news. And I know my mom always watched the Wheel of Fortune if she could. And then you had the evening news and the local news. One of them, you had the newscast, but Wheel of Fortune was somewhere, or is right after local news. I think they moved it to there. So they had after. Anyway, it became a primetime show. Well, if you don't know it, my former colleague with iHeart Kingdom, the iHeart Kingdom, Ryan Seacrest, he had a much better agent than I did, and evidently photos of somebody doing something because his career has really boomed. Ryan Seacrest opened the envelope last night, revealing the big prize for the winner. And in the history of the show, Christina Deverenjanek, I don't know how to say that twice, Stanford, Connecticut, won over $1 million. She's the 4th person to ever win $1 million on the show. Her grand total for one night was $1,035,155. And it brought producer Chad and I to this pregame discussion and conversation. Are game shows still a part of your life? If your kids are home from school, they're not watching the game shows like you and I did. So the question of the day is real simple. It'll walk down memory lane. What is your favorite game show? Do you still watch game shows? Producer Chad and I agreed that the Family Feud hosted by Steve Harvey is good. I'm glad he's doing that good on that. All of those previous hosts on Family Feud have met a very, very ugly and sad fate. A lot of them, I think all of them have. Steve Harvey does great. I'll see the Celebrity Family Feud. I don't know when it's supposed to air. I just see it in reruns at weird times of night. What are the game shows? Do you still watch, and do you still watch game shows? There's a new one. Remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I don't think that's on anymore. That was kind of a fun one. There's one I watched last week, and I think it's still recording on my DVR new season. It was called The Floor. And that was interesting, kind of some trivia, and you had a level of expertise, and you could challenge people. They tried to get in too much internal drama between the players, kind of a reality show, and talking smack. But I thought that was kind of interesting. The Gong Show, or Dennis remembers the Gong Show. Remember that? The Price is Right. Barker's Beauties. That was good. The Old Jeopardy with Alex Trebek, says Todd. Anyway, do you watch any game shows current day? First of all, reminisce about your favorite game show back in the day when game shows were still kind of part of the American lexicon for all of us. And do you have any game shows? I mean, there's a whole channel called the Game Show Network. And if you haven't tuned in there, they got game shows I've never heard of. Crazy stuff. All right, give me your game shows. Let me hear them. I'd love to talk to you and reminisce with you. We'll come back and get to that conversation here in just a moment. All right, let me bring in my guest, Michael Letts, waiting patiently for me to stop my yipping and stop my yapping. Michael Letts, investusa.org. Michael, welcome back, sir. How are you?
Always a privilege to be with you, Jimmy, and I love listening to your yissing and yakking. And I was thinking on the game shows, Jimmy, you and I are going to start a new one called The Price is Right for government contracts. What's the price for a toilet seat if you're the U.S. government, or a hammer or whatever? I think we'll have a lot of fun.
I think we have a good idea. I think this is a great idea. Delilah, start working on that. Michael's got a good idea, and I'm in. Speaking of the price of government, Chuck Schumer doesn't care about the cost of government operate. I mean, but now he does. He shut down the government. Same continuing resolution he passed in March, and now he is not passing it because he knows that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is breathing down his neck as a primary challenger. Give me your thoughts. Are you affected this morning, Michael? Are you weeping and gnashing your teeth because the government has shut down?
I can't find anybody that is. And the reason why, and I realize there are some negative consequences. Let's get that out on the table up front. Some of our essential workers may be delayed in payment. They're going to get their payment, but they may be delayed. And I don't like to see that for anybody. But the great part about it, the exchange you're going to get is, I don't think Schumer realizes there are probably over 100,000 federal employees that are not going to be coming back, because after they get done restructuring, because of this process, there's going to be about 100,000 federal employees that are going to lose their jobs. And nobody wants somebody to lose their job, but the government is always bending over backwards to try to make sure people get placed in other areas. So I'm sure there'll be, some support for those people, but quite frankly, we need to reduce the size of government, Jimmy, and I think they've given him the golden opportunity to do so.
Trump has signaled this. I mean, I didn't know this until I started hearing that Donald Trump could use permanent layoffs or reduction in force motions and memorandums. They can lay people off. I didn't know this was a tool available to the president during government shutdowns. Reagan went through a couple of shutdowns. He used the furlough, temporary furlough. Obama used furloughs. Clinton used furloughs. Donald Trump, he's figured out the rules. He's read the fine print of the game show here is what he's done. And he's like, okay, you want to shut down the government to protect your own butt, self-preservation, Chuck Schumer? Okay, you do that. And I saw the fine print. I can do something that Obama, Reagan, Clinton, they all could have done it. They didn't, but I'm going to do it. We're going to lay some people off. Chuck Schumer, as long as he's been in Washington, I guess he didn't read the fine print.
No, he never has. He only reads the fine. Well, he doesn't read the fine print at all. He gets his liberal activists to find some fine print when he thinks it benefits them. If they're not able to find it, then they're in trouble. But in this particular issue, the OMB office notified the agencies 2 weeks ago, don't plan on furloughs. Plan on terminations.
Yeah.
And so that word has been out for 2 weeks that was the intent. And Schumer walked right into it. Sometimes I wonder where his brain's at. He walked right into it. And now it's underway. And it's a very clear directive from the president to the heads of agencies. We're not going to furlough half your force. You're to give us a list of who you can let go. We're going to start the terminations.
Yeah. Adios. Buenos dias. We'll miss you already. I mean, again, I know these are people who have jobs and I wish them well, but I think it's funny that we use the phrase non-essential personnel are not reporting to the office. And you go back to all these shutdowns that we might remember. I think the one in Trump's first term was like 25 plus days. And you think back on them, you're like, I was never harmed by that. I was never bothered by that. Non-essential government workers did not show up for 25 days. I didn't miss a beat. Nothing in my life missed a beat. The fact that we're paying non-essential personnel is baffling to me. Why, if they're not essential, why do they have a job?
You have a great point, Jimmy. And I think that is, if America will just stop for a minute listening to your show and think that through one more time. Why do we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of non-essential personnel that you and I are paying for? Makes absolute no sense.
It makes absolute no sense. And again, ask yourself, you can hate Donald Trump or Mike Johnson or Elon Musk, hate whoever you want, but ask yourself, how's this really bothering you this morning as you're driving to work or you're sitting at your desk or you're listening later on the podcast version, which thousands of earballs will consume the product of the show by the end of the day. So we appreciate you doing it. Whenever you're doing it, just ask yourself, was I affected in any way today by the government shutdown? And maybe if you're a government employee, you were. But then you might ask yourself, I'm a non-essential employee. They told me not to come to work. Maybe I should find something where I'm more appreciated. I'm considered essential. I'm guessing. I don't know.
What I'm laughing at, Jimmy, is that they're going to try to portray, well, you won't get as quick a service if you dial to get help with the IRS or if you get dial to get your VA benefits, et cetera. And I'm just bursting out laughing. I don't think you get any help anyway. So I don't think you're going to organize the difference between having the non-essential personnel there and not having them there. You're still going to be frustrated with the waits.
Yeah, anybody who's tried to dial a government agency and actually anymore now get a human being on the phone, it's a tough world out there, and uh, it's going to suck whether you have whether they're at the job or off the job. I don't think it really matters that much for most of us. All right, Michael, I'm going to switch gears here. You have a military background. Those who may not know, you're were a Green Beret in the day, and you're still very involved with law enforcement and military and keeping them safe out there. Yesterday, something happened. It's kind of a historic moment. Pete Hegseth called together all the top brass, 800 plus of them. 845, I believe, was the number. Maybe it's more than that. But military generals, military admirals, they all got sent to Quantico for a little pep rally, if you will. And some people say this was a straight talk. This was some TED talk for them. And he talked about all sorts of things. He talked about the highest male standards. We're not going to make exception for females. If a female can make it, we're going to get back to that. He says this is life and death, and we can't be having different standards just because someone has a mental illness and thinks they should wear a dress. I mean, he really laid some things out. He even said, and I kind of got offended myself, and I said, okay, I'm working on losing weight here, Pete, but good thing I'm not a general. He said he gets tired of walking around the Pentagon and seeing fat guys wearing all the stripes. And I said, well, I'm going to start eating salads more, I guess, but I don't walk around. I don't walk around the Pentagon. You've been in the military. You've served as a Green Beret. What were your thoughts yesterday of Pete Hegseth's address to the military leadership?
Well, he made exactly what needed to be done. First of all, talking about our general officers, and that's what it was. All general officers and fleet commanders were summoned to the Pentagon. There were a couple of reasons that were not mentioned that were summoned that people are going to be find very interesting. But the stated purposes, first of all, kind of where are we at, guys? What do we need to be doing, and where are we headed? And of course, a couple of those things, as you recall, Jimmy, the best way to lead is to lead from the front, not to lead from the rear. And so he took that literally, and Pete said, look, if you're going to lead from the front, you're going to look like you can lead from the front. Same standards that apply to your men are the same standards that will apply to you. If you can't maintain those standards, i.e. fitness, etc., then you need to do the honorable thing and resign. The second thing that he made very clear was we are in a direction. This is not a social program. The military is not a social program. It has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to be the most deadly and lethal force in the world. And so it will no longer be a social experiment club. We're not worried about DEI. We're not worried about, our population looks like this, so we have to make sure our military looks like that, whether you're qualified or not, is irrelevant. Those days are gone. There's only one requirement. Are you able to perform, and are you lethal? And if you're not, then go find another career. But then I think the other thing he was very clearly pointing out is there's been some question, and you have seen little spots of it, but it's never really been highlighted, Jimmy. Leaks and other things that are happening, or you've had generals, et cetera, that have behind the scenes sabotaged agenda items, didn't believe in them. You had even some military bases be so overt that they won't even put up the commander in chief's picture on a military base. So it was made very clear, and this wasn't reported, but we have the ability, especially where this meeting was held at Quantico, to scan and to find out from intelligence reports who's been communicating with who. And there are networks that are now know we have terrorist networks all across this country that have been established, and they've got intel, they've got communications, they've got electronic devices. And if we find out that your devices are pairing and matching with those, I probably would resign before I could actually get back to my office. I probably would resign right then and there instead of facing the consequences. So it was very clear.
Oh, go ahead.
That it is very clear that this is a different day. We are determined with one thing: we're going to have the most lethal and deadly military force in the world. We have that capability. We've had it in the past, Jimmy. We're bringing it back.
I got a question to follow up on what you just said about their electronic and surveillance and stuff. But this is a funny meme that I saw, and I think it lightens up our mood here. This is a true one. Remember Klinger? He dressed like a woman.
Yes, I do.
So that he dressed like a woman so to show that he was too mentally ill to go into battle. The modern day military, under Biden especially, if you dress like a woman, we should affirm you, give you care, chop it off if you add it onto you, whatever you want. There was a time that our military knew that, there was a time that the military knew this was a sign of mental illness and these people ought not be going to the front line. Those days are back.
There's no question about it. And I think what was very interesting, this is very telling, is what I told you that's not being made public. It's not on the record. It was very clearly communicated that there has been intel that shows that there have been leaks, that there have been cooperation with the enemy. That's treason. And especially if it's coming from a general officer, that's why I said you might want to get those stars off your shoulder and get out that back door before they go ahead and get you out that back door. And now the day of reckoning is coming. You'll notice how do they cover that in the statement they made publicly. Pete said, we've got too many general officers. We're going to have to start scaling back. Now you know why he said that.
So if I heard you correctly, and maybe I misheard, is that getting them all in one place, is that you said it allows them to kind of scan and know who's been communicating with who? Am I hearing you that there's explain what you mean by that?
Well, Quantico has the facilities. That's where a lot of our electronic operations are at. That's where our most advanced intelligence services locations are at. And because of that, they're able to pick up when you have your personal devices that are hooking up or on a network. Wow. With terrorist organizations. You won't be able to, Jimmy, go take your phone in the bathroom anymore and hide and pop out a quick message and nobody know about it. It's going to be picked up when you went into that building. So you came to that meeting. We know everything now.
Yeah. You showed up and you're basically your phone pinged to the networks and they're scanning what you've been pinging to is what it sounds like. And, our phones listen to us all the time. Your phones can listen to something in the car and the next thing you talk about dog food or a
right.
vacation. And suddenly you get all these Facebook ads. And I didn't think of that. You get all of these military brass in one area. They all have a cell phone device. It starts pinging on Quantico. And suddenly you start to realize they're getting weird messages from this number. Look at that. Was it General Milley who said under Trump sabotaged him and said he would definitely want to let the Chinese know before any action took against them? I mean, we do have some people that have been in top level military positions in the previous Trump administration that have been they've been treasonous. Some of them got pardons, if I'm not mistaken. What percentage in that room do you think feels that way still, or have they already shown themselves the door?
No, there's still quite. My fear, Jimmy, is there's still quite a few. What we find out with everything we're looking at, we're looking at the Bureau of other things. The initial thing was, you got a handful at the top, you replace the top, you're good. No, the corruption has been going on for so long and it's deep within the system. I think you have the same problem within our military. And what you're going to find out is it was nobody picked up on an interesting note that Pete made yesterday was that, as we begin to uncover those who have had nefarious actions, even if you've left, you will be recalled to active duty so that you can be properly court-martialed, dismissed, and tried if there are any criminal charges.
Somebody on the YouTube platform, I see it out there in the chat room, it'll go on the screen here in a second, Dennis, said, what happened to treason charges? Why aren't they enforcing them? We hear, obviously, Milley or anybody out there says, no, if the commander-in-chief tells me something, I'll tip the enemy first. These are treasonous things, and it sounds like there's been many people that might have been involved in some type of activity, or at least should be tried for that. That just doesn't seem to happen. We often use the banty around the word treason, and yet we don't ever see action taken on that. What are your thoughts?
Well, and that is a correct statement. We don't see the action because it hasn't been there. But under this administration, I've mentioned it a number of times, even on your show, Jimmy, military tribunals, start remembering that word because it's coming back. And we have to be careful how that's done because you had such a liberal influence that, anytime you use the word military, it automatically means you have a dictatorship. You've got a governor general who's stolen the platform and will never step down. That has never been the discussion. The discussion has been to always use the provisions given under the Constitution. Military tribunals are given under the Constitution. We'd like to use them as a last resort, but it is a constitutional power. The president, as the commander-in-chief, has the right to exercise. And yes, military tribunals have been convened. And we're in the process now of putting everything together to make sure that they're utilized in the most advantageous way.
I also heard somebody give the analysis that one of the reasons they do the unprecedented act of bringing everybody, I guess in World War II, there were about 75 people that were top brass that came to Washington, D.C. for a quick meeting during WW2, but this has never happened before. Interesting what you said about surveillance, and your phones are going to check in while you're here. You were going to bring that with you, and welcome to the surveillance world of the American government, I guess. But the other one I heard is that he wanted everybody in the room so that you didn't say, "Oh, I didn't get that email. Oh, I didn't get I didn't get the communication," and they continue to operate in the way they're not supposed to. This was a way to say, ain't no excuses here, guys. You're all here in a room. It's not lost in translation, lost in an email server. It's not lost in some wire memo. You're hearing it here from the horse's mouth. Go and act therefore.
Oh, you're exactly right, Jimmy. He wanted that one for one particular reason. This is coming from the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States. There's nothing like face-to-face communication. So you can be no accusation that, well, I didn't think he meant it that way, or I think he was joking. No, you got to see exactly the tone, the sternness, and the decisiveness that was made by the president and the secretary of war. That this is where we're at today. And that's why he made the comment, if you're not on board, you might want to do the honorable thing, resign quickly. Doesn't mean you're going to escape justice. Just means you may save yourself some embarrassment in front of your men.
Do you think we will see, and if there are resignations, say, okay, the military is not for me anymore, will we hear about those? Will we know the fallout of yesterday's meeting?
I believe you will, yes. Now, will the media try to convince you that it is part of? Depends on how they want to play the narrative. The media wants to try to take it kind of look at how he's destroying the military. He's removing all these experienced, leadership, and will never be able to recover. Then you'll hear about it that way. I don't think they're going to tell you, look at the nefarious things that were done, and that's why they're going out the back door. But I do believe either way you're going to hear about them leaving. Just depends on how they phrase it.
The voice of Michael Letts, if you're listening later in the day on the podcast versions of the show, which a lot of you do, we appreciate you doing that. Michael Letts, investusa.org, investusa.org. I saw that the ladies on The View said he was fat shaming yesterday, that he was telling people that, what's he got against fat people? It's very interesting to point out, I can make jokes about I need to eat more salads, but it's very interesting to point out this is life or death for these people. If you're out there with your comrades, your brothers or sisters in arms, you need to know that if you get in a situation, maybe they can just drag your body to safety. I mean, you need to know that people have a physical level of performance that is up to a certain level. And evidently, we've had all sorts of things. If you dress up like a Klinger, you had a different set of standards there. If you identified and used different pronouns, you had different standards. If you were a biological female, there were different standards. And they're getting rid of all those different standards. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. One of the things that people may not have picked up on that what Pete was saying yesterday was when we made the transition years ago to trying to be a representative of the populace. You said, okay, we're going to put women in combat. Oh, well, they can't do as much physically as men. Well, then we're going to change it. We'll have two standards. A standard of physical endurance by men and one for women. We can't do this. Well, then we're going to lower the standard. Oh, well, we can't get enough people that have college degrees or educational experience. Well, then we'll drop it to just a high school. They kept lowering the standard, and the Pete said, enough. We're going to go back to the old standard. There's one standard for everybody. It doesn't mean that a woman's not allowed to do it. If you meet the standard, you're in. But if you don't meet the standard, we're not changing it. And the key reason why is what we talked about when we first started the show with you, Jimmy. Leadership has to, in military operations, leadership has to be at the front, has to lead from the front, not from the rear. You can't sit back there and hey, this doesn't apply to me. It applies to you, my truth, but I don't have to do it. You don't have leadership if that's the case. The president recognizes that, and so does Pete. And that's why we're reverting back to this. There's one standard. Everybody meets it. I don't care whether you're wearing bars or stripes. It doesn't make any difference to me. You're going to meet the standard. And if you can't, find another career. God bless you, but you're not going to be welcome here.
So hopefully some resignations come, some firings, maybe some trials are coming. All that looks like it's coming down the pike sooner or later. But there's also some people in that room, Michael, that I'm guessing were relieved. I'm guessing they really, even though they had to keep their composure and look tough, I bet there's a lot of folks out there that were excited. I heard people yesterday say that they were hearing from active duty friends, and they're thrilled that a lot of this BS is ending that they've had to put up with in the workplace, this DEI environment, this politically correct stuff. I think, again, I don't know if it's 80-20%, I don't know if it's 90-10, but there were probably some guys and ladies wearing the stripes and the brass yesterday that were thrilled to hear that America's back as a badass war fighting machine, and that's our focus.
I think I love your analogy just there, Jimmy, because I think it's more like 75 to 80% are in that category. But you say, well, what happens? Military protocol, you don't criticize your superiors, you don't even really criticize your colleagues. So they sat here and had to watch this transpire during the career. They didn't benefit by it because they were doing the right thing, but they had to watch people who were totally unqualified get run up the ladder, because we have to be able to say we represent what our country shows, who had no idea how to really lead, the men and women had no respect for them. God help them if they'd ever got in combat, whether they would have followed them or not. So they're delighted. They now realize that this is what I signed up for. I signed up to be part of a lethal force, the best lethal force in the world. Now we're going to finally get the opportunity to go back to where we used to be in World War II.
Let me ask you one more quick question. You got Milley out there. We have Austin that was the served under Biden. There's obviously a lot more of these guys, and how these old previous generation people became such idiots, I don't know. But is there another way? How do we make sure that we don't put any of those in positions of power? How do we make sure we don't have any wolves in sheep's clothing hanging out there to where we don't have another General Milley that's in a big, powerful position?
Well, I thought this was interesting, and it's very telling. You're going to be the first one in the country to hear about it, Jimmy. But if you listen in to what was said and what was delivered, it was very subtle but very poignant that we don't need politics in the military anymore. See, the way it works now is, when you're a general officer, you have to be appointed by the president to be a general officer, all through from brigadier to general. And so what happens is there's a lot of butt kissing, shall we say, politics from that point on. Not validation, qualifications. It's who you know. And the president addressed this as well in his comments, very subtly. But we're getting away from who do you know, how much are you qualified? That's where it needs to be. That's where the respect comes back to your general officers. You can't give respect, Jimmy. You have to earn it. Yeah. And these people didn't earn respect. They got in with the right political party and kissed the right behind. And then when they became president, they suddenly went from a colonel to right up the ranks in general officers just overnight because of who they knew, not their qualifications.
I think it was interesting. I would love to, if we had like bubbles popping up above their heads yesterday, we could read what everybody's saying. Because there were some of them going, man, I love President Trump and Secretary Hegseth. But doggone it, I got to get back in shape. He's going to start testing me twice a year to make sure I'm still in shape. I love him, but God, I would just don't do that. And I'm wondering how many guys went home and ladies went home last night and checked their medical plans with the military and said, "Does it include Ozempic?" There's a lot of people that they might have loved everything. Going, okay, I got to get back in shape. I got the stars and the stripes. I got all that stuff, and I probably need to get back into fighting shape.
And one thing we need to quickly point out, Jimmy, is the medical review boards are still in place for the military. What does that mean? Let's just say you're 5'10", and the chart says you're supposed to weigh 185 pounds. You weigh 220 or 230. You don't have an ounce of fat on you. They understand that, not everybody fits, but it's based on, can you be lethal and perform, or are you 230 pounds because of the fact that you're carrying 60 pounds of excess weight that's not doing anybody any good? That's where this is going to come down to. It's the same occurs with what you just said. I'm older now. My joints don't work quite as well. There will be some consideration given for that. But certainly, we're going back to the old standards.
You gave the example of, are you 230 pounds because of this and that? And as you were doing that, I thought you were going to say, bow your heads, close your eyes. I was going to raise my hand up and repent. I was waiting for the altar call there. 230 pounds because of what? It ain't because of lean muscle mass here, Michael. Bow my head and close my eyes, and I see that hand. I see it. Yes, I do.
Well, if I'd have thought about it, Jimmy, right after that, we'd have held the offering.
Oh, well, we can still do that. We can always pass the plate on this show. All right, Michael, speaking of passing of the plate, it is a good time to segue into Invest USA. You believe in protecting those that protect us, first responders, ICE agents out there under attack by radical communist leftists out there that hate freedom of speech, hate the rule of law. And you want to make sure these people all have protective gear. That's what Invest USA does. And tell us about it.
Well, it's essential that they have active shooter vests because all these people now, Antifa and others, are using long-range rifles. And a concealable vest, one underneath their shirt, just simply won't do the job. They have to have an active shooter vest. It's telling that now we're having to engage active duty military in Portland and other places to restore and to bring back law and order. So if we're having to bring in active duty, imagine what it's like for the law enforcement officers on the street. They deserve a fighting chance. And because of that, we have to make sure that they have the necessary equipment. We're trying to make sure that gets lined item in budgets, but you saw what's going on with the budget right now in D.C. So I'm not looking for any government help to equip our officers in the near future. It's up to us, Jimmy. And that's why Invest is more important now than ever. Go to the website, investusa.org. Make a contribution. Let's make sure those that are putting their life on the line today know that we've got their backs covered.
Yeah. Michael Letts, I hope people give you $1. I'd like to give you $10 or $100, $1,000. I want to show you this. You'll like this. My buddy Doug Giles did this. This is my Charlie Kirk print. It just showed up in the mail. And
beautiful.
It's absolutely amazing. It's going in my other studio. It has the scripture on there. Speaking of pass the plate, blessed are those who die in the Lord. Their good deeds will follow them. They will rest from their hard work. Revelation 14:13. It arrived yesterday. It'll be in the other podcast studios. So everybody go get one. Michael, you got to get yourself one. Doug Giles.
I'm looking forward. Yeah, give me that site again because I would love to get one.
He's got a couple more now that he's put out with Charlie's stuff on him. So I thought I'd show that. Michael, I kept you overtime. I appreciate it. Delilah, double his pay today. He worked hard. He worked hard. All right. Michael, I'm going to go continue my repenting and prayer session after that altar call you gave. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
InvestUSA.org, InvestUSA.org. No, he starts talking about that. Are you 230 pounds with not a bit of fat on you? Or are you 230 pounds because of the... Bow your heads, close your eyes. No, I was like, it's me, Pastor. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to do those things. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have you here on the program. It's Jimmy Lakey is my name. Hey, I got some more video I want to show you, but before I do, I want to remind you about Sherry Cree, Realtor Extraordinaire. And if you're in the Colorado area, I know a lot of you are outside of Colorado, and I get that. I understand that. But if you're in the Colorado I-25 corridor, Denver to Fort Collins, down to the Highlands Ranch, Park Meadows area, maybe you're out in Aurora where the Tren de Aragua have been chased out of town. Maybe you're down in the Parker area. Maybe you're out in the Looney Bin of Boulder. Maybe you're in Broomfield. Maybe you're in the Longmont. You get the idea. I'm naming all this I-25 corridor towns and enclaves. Sherry's who you want to have on your team. Sherry is the one that you want to brainstorm, put the plan together. As you know, there can be hot real estate markets, there can be slow real estate market, there can be buyers markets, sellers markets, and the strategy that you need to implement is different for each of those market cycles that we go through. And so if your realtor doesn't talk to you about, hey, we're in this market, here's what's coming, here are the trends, here's how we can angle, there's strategy involved. And Sherry loves to talk the strategy with you, and she keeps it simple. She's not going to make it overly complicated, but there's just different ways to approach selling a home, including, just little things we've talked about, that if you're going to list your home right after, let's say, Super Bowl, mid-February, you want to be first on the spring market, then that's fine, but you better get your photos taken now, have Sherry arrange a real estate photographer for you, and that way you have all the greenery and the foliage. Little things like that can really go, depending on the time of year that you're selling your home. Maybe you want to do some work around the house. She can kind of give you a checklist. You want to do that. You don't need to do that, but you really should do this. Listen, it's all about the strategy. It's all about having an expert in your corner, and she approaches every day on the job with you. As she wants to earn the privilege. It's not a right, it's a privilege to be your real estate agent for life. So homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? You can find out all those details, find out how to approach it. And by the way, if you're a military veteran, if you're a first responder, if you're active duty, she will give a discount of her own commission so that it makes that house at least more in your pocket. She'll also take any commission she makes, and she'll donate part of her commission to the charity of your choice. She'll donate part of that to you. To the charity of your choice. She's a fantastic lady, high integrity. And I think you will find out, my friends, that there's different. You probably know this. In any world, there's the good, the bad, the ugly. There's people that are really good, mediocre. She's the best of the best, and I think you'll enjoy working with her. Homeswithsherry.com. She's on the show with us Friday. Once again, every Friday she has a brief segment with us. But homeswithsherry.com. And again, just because you're not looking to put a sign in your yard right now, maybe you're a year out. Maybe you want it next summer after the kids get through the school year. Well, good. Start strategizing now. Start putting the plan together. And it's just a couple of meetings, some coffee, some conversations, some phone calls, and get ready to rock and roll. And it's homeswithsherry.com. By the way, it's an interview. You're going to interview her and see if she gets hired for the job. And she may not want to work with you either. That's a prerogative. You'll want that synchronicity in relationship. Notice what I did there? Synchronicity in relationship. That's what you want. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. All right, I want to go back. If you're late joining us on the program, I want to go back and once again give honor where honor is due. And the trolling game of President Donald J. Trump, you can't have great video like this and only use it once a show. If you missed it, Trump is trolling the Democrats over the shutdown. And Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are out there acting like they're dumb and dumber, standing there. We're angry about this. Well, Hakeem, shut up. This has already passed the House. You're irrelevant in this argument now. You can stand there like the bosom buddy of Chuck Schumer and just kind of pretend that you're really upset about this thing. But your chamber is done. You've already lost. Chuck Schumer has, by the way, lost 3 Democrats already, and he only needs a couple of more. So what I'm hearing is going to happen is that they are going to take as many votes as possible, as regularly as possible in the U.S. Senate. They're going to take some votes and just continue to try to push Democrats and say, look, we're voting to open the government, and it's Democrats who are opposing it. So even though the narrative is that Republicans did this, ABC News tries to blame this on Trump, this is the same continuing resolution that Chuck Schumer was for in March. This is a 7-week one. And again, if the Republicans can't get their crap together, these 12 appropriation bills, getting back on what we call the regular rules, that's what they're trying to do. And they're closer than they have been. I have to give credit where credit is due. Republicans are doing better at getting closer to that appropriate operation of the budget. 12 appropriation bills all heard separately and all joining together at the very end to become one big budget. We're getting back there, but the House says, hey, man, we're so far behind. We needed a little extra time. Give us 7 more weeks, but let's just keep doing what we're doing. They're not adding, taking away, doing anything. Just give us 7 more weeks of doing what you were doing under Joseph Rubalon Biden. Do what you were doing since March, but they can't do it. Why? Because Chuck Schumer is petrified of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and he's petrified that she's going to challenge him in a Senate primary. So this is Chuck Schumer's self-preservation shutdown, and he's already lost 3 U.S. senators: Fetterman from Pennsylvania, Cortez Mastro, a Democrat from Nevada, and Angus King, who's an independent that chambers with the Democrats from Maine. They want no part of the Schumer self-preservation. That is huge because the Democrats did not hold rank even at the very, they didn't even get across the finish line or the deadline without already breaking rank. And I think they need 3 or 4 more. And if they get 3 or 4 more people with pressure that start to punch on them, then Schumer loses his self-preservation. But Schumer can then say, I tried to fight, it was these traitors. But again, he's already lost 3, and we just not hit the shutdown. So 3 or 4 more, and it's a checkmate on Chuck Schumer. And then we'll get to see what happens to Chuck Schumer. Remember, they threatened his job. They tried to take him out in March as far as the leader. He really ticked off some people, so he's just not going to do that again. Ray says this on the YouTube: Jimmy Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are not acting. They are Dumb and Dumber. That is probably true as well. All right, good to have you here. I want to play these trolling videos. I promise you got to do these more than once in a show. As we near the end, I got a couple more video clips. Don't go anywhere. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the fantastic one that Donald Trump putting on the TED Talk, the master class on how to troll Dumb and Dumber. This is how he did it, and he really hurt their feelings. And I'll show you the follow-up troll next. This is what is great about Trump. Love him or hate him, he doesn't back down.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
All right, pardon the language, I know, but that was the original tweet. He got very upset. AI, you're using AI to make us sound bad, and you're putting a sombrero that's racist. Ha ha. Arriba. And so Donald Trump doubles down. Media's going apoplectic. Oh my God, that's such racism. Putting the black guy in the sombrero. I don't know how that's racist, but supposedly it is. But here we go, my friends. This is the double down of Donald John Trump responding to Hakeem Jeffries complaining about the AI images and the AI audio and the sombrero on his head. And Donald Trump says, you know what, Hakeem, you deserve another mariachi band. And I'd like for you to watch your screen if you're watching us and watch who's in that old mariachi band. Watch it.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
Oh, goodness. God, I'm telling you, we just don't deserve that guy. Donald Trump doubling down on just poking fun at him. And sometimes you just have to illustrate absurdity. And that is what I think is a great way to do it, is just to illustrate that absurdity. One more time, here's the names of the people that have broken. You can see from the Democrat Party, there's 3: Fetterman from Pennsylvania, Cortez Masto, Nevada, Angus King from Maine is an independent, but that is... They want no part of the Schumer shutdown. They have already broken ranks, and that's significant, I think, because as you move forward, they only need 3 or 4 more. Now, have you called your U.S. senator? Now, I'm in Colorado. Is it worthwhile? Does anybody call Hickenlooper or Bennett anymore? Does anybody get a staff member? I use the microphone a lot more than I use the phone as far as shaming and calling attention to these things. But let me ask you, if any of you have reached out to Bennett or Hickenlooper or your U.S. senator, especially if they're a Democrat and they're not on that list on the screen, I would love by tomorrow to get your reporting on it. What is your senator's office? This is the thing. Chuck Schumer this is self-preservation by Schumer, and Chuck Schumer is trying to cover his butt and save his butt from a political primary. And I just wonder how many other people will feel the heat that those 3 names have just felt and said, you know what, we're not going to go along. It's not our job to vote and harm people and harm careers, etc. It's not our job to do that just so Chuck Schumer can have a life preserver. So if any of you have called your U.S. senator, I'd love to hear what they're saying, what their office is telling you. And I have not heard that the switchboard has been shut down, because the truth is, I think most people don't give a rat's patootie. We've heard government shut down and the sky is falling, all hell's about to break loose, and it never does. And so we kind of realize the ruse and the propaganda we're told versus the reality of what a government shutdown is going to do. But again, this is the thing to watch. First of all, let's continue to watch how many. We have 3 names that are already up there that have broken ranks with Chuck Schumer's self-preservation shutdown. You got Fetterman, Cortez Masto of Nevada, and King of Maine. Fetterman, of course, from Pennsylvania. How many more will break ranks? And the way we know that is is the government are they receiving phone calls at the U.S. Senate building? Have you called your U.S. senator? Do you intend to call your U.S. senator? Especially the Democrat ones. The Republicans have stuck together on this as just a simple CR, but Democrats are already breaking ranks early on. Fetterman's been broken off early. Yesterday's vote, there's 2 more that added to him. And so that's going to be the first thing that's going to be interesting to see, is how many other people say, Chuck Schumer, I'm not going to go for your self-preservation shutdown. I'm going to vote for what's right here. And we're going to give this 7 more weeks and then hope the Republicans can have their 12 appropriation bills complete. They were way behind. It had been years since they've done a budget this way. They're kind of greasing things back up, but I think it's an important step. And I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here, because because they seem to be making progress in getting back to regular rules and the 12 appropriation bills. They just needed some more time. I get it. It's been years, decades since they've had a proper budget, and now they're just asking 7 more weeks. That's what they need. Jim says, Marble Mouth Bennett's office hung up on me twice yesterday. He must be on a government phone plan. Marble Mouth Bennett, they hung up on you? You're a citizen, and you hear that? This is what they think of you. This is why I want you all to call and let them hear from you, and let them just keep hanging up on people all day long. They need to know that they do have people out there, and Michael Bennet never wanted to be the U.S. Senator from Colorado. He got out here on a banking job, ended up running a school district. He's an Ivy League jackwagon, and his family's all works for the New York Times. He's all East Coasters, and he ended up realizing, I'm going to go into the U.S. Senate and represent these rubes. There's actually tractors and farmers in Colorado. That's where he got elected. He doesn't like us. That's why he ran for president, and that's why he stayed in the race, even when people were like, dude, are you drunk, or you just not know how to speak? I mean, are you incompetent? It's not good. But he stayed in it. Please get me out of Colorado. That's what he wanted to do. I don't think he ever wanted to be here long term. He's an East Coast Ivy Leaguer, and they hang up on you. And shame on his office for treating you that way. As long as you were respectful, I hope that you were. You got to be respectful, and hopefully you were, Jim. I assume you were. But again, Marble Mouth Bennett, Hickenlooper, call your U.S. Senator, report back to me, and let me know exactly what you're finding out, and we'll see who breaks rank, and we'll hear if there's a volume of calls that gets reported out of the U.S. Senate office building of people calling their U.S. Senator. All right, I've got to wrap it up here, but I want to show you something, and I may come back to this tomorrow. Political discourse in our country has gotten way heated. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, shooting down ICE agents, shooting down your political opponents, threats of violence, firebombing Teslas. This is what the Democrat Party has become, unfortunately, in America. And sadly, there's no leadership in the Democrat Party to condemn it. I want to take you back in time to the 1970s or 60s. I don't know when that happened. I should have looked up the date before. But Ronald Reagan was a political rising star as a Screen Actors Guild, the Actors Union, and then, of course, the governor of the state of California. And he was making a speech, and I should have learned more background to this, but I just thought it was great audio. It's audio only. And he gets word during his speech that one of the political albatrosses in America's neck, racism, had been shot and had been injured. And I want you to watch how Reagan responds. Now, he's talking about George Wallace. And anybody knows American history, George Wallace was a huge segregationist, ran in Alabama, got assassinated, ended up getting his heart right because his caretaker in his suffering years of injury from that fallout from that shooting, the story is it was a black lady that became friends, and he realized the error of his ways of segregationism. But he was a problem in America as far as the views of segregation, the views of racial inequality were being perpetrated by him at the time. And by the way, he was a Democrat then as well. So I want you to watch this reaction. Notice how the left responded to the assassination, the murder of Charlie Kirk. And then notice, if you will, how Ronald Reagan responds to hearing that George Wallace, a political foe, has been attempted to be assassinated. I just want you to compare and contrast. This is how far we have fallen as a culture, and this is also how far Democrats have stepped away from what is real decency in the leadership, because I still haven't heard Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is more concerned about an AI meme and a sombrero and the firing of Jimmy Kimmel than I ever saw him being passionate about the death of Charlie Kirk. And I'm not just saying that. Prove me wrong if you can. Hakeem Jeffries is more upset, more animated about somebody using an AI video, putting a sombrero on his head, calling him irrelevant to the process of passing this budget. He's more animated about that and standing up for his self-preservation friend Chuck Schumer and the shutdown than he was ever concerned about the political violence and rhetoric, and he won't condemn anybody in his own party, even the jackwagon members of the U.S. House of Representatives that continue to say there's no legacy to celebrate for Charlie Kirk. That's what AOC says. That's all these Democrats are radical, and Hakeem doesn't have the cojones to stand up and tell these battle axes to shut the heck up. Hakeem doesn't have, he does threaten the president. He says, you say that to my face, Mr. President. Why don't you tell Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or these idiots that run the squad and basically control you, Hakeem? Why don't you tell them to say this stuff to your face about political violence and retribution and jackbooted thugs and stuff? So anyway, I just want you to watch how classy Republicans were. What happened after Charlie Kirk died? We worshiped, we prayed, we sought the face of God. What happened after Charlie Kirk died on the other side? They danced in the street, called them bad people. They then tried to shoot down the ICE agents. And again, it's not just in recent day that Republicans had a lot more classy and I guess humane reaction to death and political violence. But it's obvious here. Just watch the clip by Ronald Reagan. This is audio only. His picture will be on the screen, but this is audio. Ronald Reagan learning of the assassination attempt of George Wallace. Watch.
Oh, no, this is a news bulletin that I'm sure would be of great interest to every one of you. It's just been handed to me by Ed Gray, my press secretary, passed down the table here, that the AP and the UPI report that George Wallace has been shot during an appearance at Laurel, Maryland. He was taken to a hospital by ambulance. There are no further details.
Let me stop. Did you hear the crowd? He's at a governor's meeting. You'd think somebody would have cheered, right? In today's political age, Nancy Pelosi would have cheered and her teeth would have popped out of her mouth. Something would have happened. But you heard the crowd just gasps going, oh, God, this is not good. Continue. I just wanted to point out, listen to the crowd in the background.
And the UPI report that George Wallace has been shot during an appearance at Laurel, Maryland. He was taken to a hospital by ambulance. There are no further details as yet. Well,
now listen to what he does, off the cuff.
Let me that gives me a chance, and I don't suppose there's any question anymore about any questions. But isn't this, again, something of what we've been talking about? We've had such tragedies in the last several years in the area of political candidates and office holders of this kind. And isn't this an outgrowth of the hatred that seems to have been injected into what has in the past has been simply normal competition and normal rivalry and certainly election year emotionalism and all? But if something is to be done about this kind of tragedy for anyone, isn't it necessary that all of us review our own attitude and say, yes, it is possible for men and women of goodwill to differ, to have opposing viewpoints, to discuss and debate them, and perhaps never to come to agreement on them. But as God is in his heaven, do we have to hate each other to the point that people with less balance are stimulated to deeds of this kind?
What a difference a couple of decades makes. 1972, the Governors Association meeting, Ronald Reagan addressing his crowd, political opponent, the opposite party, and he stepped up graciously and just part of the heart of who he was, stepped up and said, oh my, this is not good. We have to change something in America. Can you imagine after the Charlie Kirk assassination had Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer come out, and if they had come out and made such a similar offer of reconciliation and just warning before this guy here was after this guy was assassinated on the streets of the university, Utah Valley University, it seems as if we would be in a much better spot today, even in the wake of government shutdown, had they had the dignity to come out with that type of response regarding the death of Charlie Kirk. I watched a video also when Donald Trump learned that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died. He said, I didn't know that. He says, and he immediately, because of what happens under duress and stress, usually comes out. It's the real you. And he came out and said, well, she's a great lady. She has a great legacy. Again, political opponents disagreed with her judicial stances, I'm sure. But Donald Trump immediately, upon hearing of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, gives a respectful obituary or eulogy of her. They're interviewed by a reporter. Ronald Reagan immediately hears this news, and he recognizes the need to come in and dial things back and to say, hey, we have to be able to disagree. What did the left do? What did Hakeem Jeffries do? What did Chuck Schumer do? What did Michael Bennett do? What did John Hickenlooper do? What did any of these politicians out there do after the assassination of Charlie Kirk? They have colleagues out there that are saying there is no honor. These are Nazis. They ought to be. I mean, they're still doing the rhetoric, and these people that are supposedly still mainstream Democrats have not condemned it because none of them have the class, the dignity, and the relationship with the Almighty, in my opinion, that people like Ronald Reagan had, because immediately the goodness in him came out after the announcement of the death of, or the assassination attempt of George Wallace. So it just, case in point, my friend, if you don't learn from history, understand history, you're bound to continue to repeat it, continue to elect these people, and unhinged people will do bad things. Unhinged people did bad things in 1972, taking out George Wallace for whatever their motivation was. They probably felt righteous, but they were wrong. They were sinful. They violated the covenants that God put us on the earth for. They should not have done that. And you just got to condemn it, whether they say they represent your party or they don't. You just got to condemn it and say shooting George Wallace in 1972 was an act of Satan. It's not an act of God. It's not an act of preserving the Union. It was an act of political violence in a time that America was working out some real deep struggles there. And the fact that the modern day Democrat Party, yes, I'm talking to you, Jared Polis. Yes, I'm talking to you, Hickenlooper, Bennett. I'm talking to all you Democrats out there. The fact and how you have reacted and how your followers have reacted after the death of Charlie Kirk, and I compare that to how Ronald Reagan reacted in 1972. To quote Walter Mondale, who made the state. Oh, it was I forgot who it was, but they looked and said, I knew Ronald Reagan and you're no Ronald Reagan. And remember that in the debate back in they said that to Dan Quayle. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And sadly, it was Lloyd Benson. It was Lloyd Benson, right? He was a senator from Texas, and he said that to Dan Quayle. I knew this person, and you're no JFK, whatever it was. Well, sadly, the class, the dignity, and the honor that Ronald Wilson Reagan displayed there is something that I don't think anybody in the modern-day Democrat Party, unfortunately, has the ability and or the capabilities of expressing that type of class. All right, it's been a fun question of the day. A lot of you have been responding, say you don't watch game shows. Now, isn't it amazing? Things that don't... that are no longer in our lives that used to be staple. Game shows were a big deal. Arloa says, I used to watch Jeopardy with my mom. I thought she was the smartest person I know. Man, Jeopardy was one of those things as a kid, teenager. I'd watch it and go, I don't know the answer to that. I better study more. Family Feud was always a big one. I remember Richard Dawson. You had Ray Combs. I think those guys both had bad endings. Hollywood Squares was one. Didn't Whoopi Goldberg used to sit in the center square? She used to be funny then, before she was anger and before she... I don't know, got vaccinated with bitterness or whatever happened to her. But who at the center squares? Yeah, it's just fun game shows, and now they're not even a part of our life. Even 20 years ago, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was something that people tuned into to watch. And we just kind of got away from game shows. There is one called The Floor. I do watch that. I watched it last season. It got a little bit petty along the way, but it was kind of interesting, kind of trivia. They show flashcards, and you have to name what it's up there, and you declare your expertise. And it was kind of fun, but it was probably lasted about 3 seasons too long, and you have to wait till the end of the season to see who wins. And there may be a winner of the day, but I've got it recording on the DVR. I'm not sure I'll watch it again this year. I may be deleting that, but that's the only modern game show that I can think of. Celebrity Family Feud, any of the Family Feuds with Steve Harvey, I think are fantastic. But again, I don't even know when the right time for those to air is anymore. I have not seen Wheel of Fortune in so long that I know that Ryan Seacrest is hosting it now, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't even know. So anyway, game shows, I appreciate it. Just kind of think back how big they were in our lives. And now we don't even know. I'm seeing the channels that are out there. There's a game show network. You ever turn that on? They're still making game shows every day in LA and Hollywood, wherever they make them, and they air on the game show network. And you can win back $25 and a gift card to Starbucks. They're still making game shows. They look pretty high tech and high dollar, but nobody sees them. Anyway, game shows in America. The reason I asked that question is because last night on the airing of the Wheel of Fortune, a lady won the most ever before in the night, $1,135,000 and some cents. I mean, she won a lot of money on the game show last night of the Wheel of Fortune, largest purse ever on the Wheel of Fortune franchise, and she won that last night. So I asked, what game shows are you still watching? And did anybody see that last night? So far, nobody has said they saw that. You know why? Because I don't even know when Wheel of Fortune airs anymore. I don't know the real time for Celebrity Family Feud or Family Feud with Steve Harvey. I have no clue. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got to wrap this thing up because you know why? The constraints of time, and producer Chad and I have other things to do. Yeah, I know that shocks you, but we got a lot of other things to do. And by the way, tomorrow I want to, speaking of Ozempic and the Pentagon, we talked about that earlier. I'm an announcer of football games. As you know, I'm available for hire, by the way. Big stadiums, you want a voice, I'm your voice. The trains at Denver International Airport, I'm available. I do voice work like that, a stadium announcer. And there's this, I'm going to keep it loaded up. I don't have time to get to today, but a college announcer has gotten in trouble because evidently the dance team from the opposing school, I don't know if they advertised this. I got to research it. They were big girls, big boned. And that's a whole different question. What's a nice way to say they're fat chicks? I tried to keep a straight face. So there's a nice way to say. I think as Rubenesque was a phrase. We'll talk about this tomorrow. But anyway, he announced them as the dance team that's the face of Ozempic, and they went on the stage. We're going to talk about this tomorrow with all this obsession about Pete Hegseth and did he fat shame some generals and military people yesterday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to play the meme roulette, the stolen meme section of the show. This is where we go around the globe. We steal good stuff off the internet. Some of it's not all that good, but we steal it off the internet. We put it on here. We call it meme roulette because you know why? Round and round the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. This is not just a meme. This is a lesson in history. Brits gave up their firearms in 1997. Less than 30 years later, they're being arrested for Facebook post. That's actually true. I've been watching some of these feeds that are coming out of people posting things on Facebook in Great Britain, and they're talking about immigration. They're talking about deport them. Why are they voting here? I mean, little simple things that you and I take for granted here, and Brits are actually going to jail for this right now, like 7 to 8 years. They're getting put in prison for it. Freedom of speech is not long. It's not real widespread in the Great Britain because you can go to jail for a Facebook post. And thank God Donald Trump, at least for now, has saved America from going to that place. Round and around the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Here we go. Sometimes the memes just write themselves. Speaking of what's a nice way to say fat chick. The shirt says, this is what this is what a feminist looks like. Yep, that's probably right. That's the stereotype. There you go. Sometimes the memes make themselves. This is what the feminist looks like. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one know. John F. Kennedy, if a liberal from 1960 showed up today, that'd be considered conservative. If a liberal from today showed up in 1960, they would be considered an absolute lunatic. How many of you were alive and paying attention? I was not. I was not even a sparkle in my mother's eye in 1960. I don't know if I was. My parents didn't even know each other in 1960. They were just whippersnappers. Were they still in high school? I don't know where they're at. Anyway, this is true. This is, again, lesson in parallels, lesson in history. It's like comparing the response to Charlie Kirk's murder with the response that Ronald Reagan gave after the shooting of Wallace, George Wallace. And there you have it. Compare and contrast, my friend. The Democrat Party has fallen mightily in the last, just in our lifetime, how hell-bent and crazy it's become. Ready? Round and round the globe. I did the emphasis there. Round and round the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Dentist says, you're brushing wrong. The doctor says, you're eating wrong. Parents say, you're living wrong. Liquor store owner says, you're doing great. This is proof that God can send some very encouragement messages from the most unusual places. Anybody else feel that? All day long, you get told how wrong you are, and yet you go to the local booze shop, and they say, that a boy, you got bonus points today on the frequent flyer program. Round and round the globe we go. I'm thinking, I think I have some points down at the Atlas store. All right, here we go. Fact, drinking bourbon every day is healthier than being dead. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I know some of you may be teetotalers out there, but if you want to be healthy, this is healthier than being dead. It really is. Round and round the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. I was bit by a mosquito last night. Bet that little bastard's pretty hungover today. Anybody get the feel? Producer Chad chooses the memes. Anybody get the feel that producer Chad might have been on a bender yesterday? I'm not saying he was. We might have had a little something, but we didn't have that much, producer Chad, yesterday. We didn't have that much. We had a cigar and a beverage, then discuss the greatness of this show and things we should do and people we should ban and why I should not be the host. That's what they're trying to do. It's an intervention. Round and around the globe we go. Where are we steal the memes from? No one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have milked the meme machine dry, which means we must conclude this portion of the program. Want to remind you, on the screen, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Today's the first of the month. Some of you get paid on the 1st, some of you get paid the 15th, some of the 15th and the 30th. Whether you get paid or not, would you prayerfully consider making a donation to our charity work there? I sent out a great newsletter yesterday. I want to expound on it. How many are on our email list? Raise your hand. If you did not receive yesterday's email, you need to get on the email list. It was a fantastic story of a young man named John Dedoux. First name is John. They spells Jean, but we'd say John Dedoux. It's a French derivative. But Jean or Jean Dedoux, usually say it together. You can say it separately. We started sponsoring him when he was 8 years old. And in his own words, in the email that went out yesterday, he told a story. He was a boy that didn't know God, wasn't a Christian. His family wasn't Christian. They thought it was hopeless. As a boy, he had a dream. He wanted to become an engineer, but he couldn't even afford to go to first grade, second grade, third grade. So at the age of 8, he got a sponsor. And I don't know if she's watching. Her name is Eileen. She's been a longtime follower on the radio shows. And she's always, for years, I think she's taken second jobs to sponsor kids. That's how seriously she takes it. She sponsored John Dedoux and sponsored him at about 18. He graduated. She was with him 8, 9, 10 years, sponsoring him, taking care of him, making sure that he was sponsored. And then we sent him to trade school, and he learned mechanics and welding. And he came back to his village, and he thought, I'm getting rich, man. I'm making $10 a week, and then I'm making $10 every other day. He started making money, but he just felt, I wish I could be an engineer. But he couldn't go to university. It was not in his pathway because he didn't get far enough along into his schooling. And I'll tell you the story tomorrow. I'll show some photos of him tomorrow. If you got the newsletter yesterday, you saw it, or the email I sent out on a Rivers Promise list. But after making money as mechanics and a welder and stuff, he said, I think I want to join the RDF, which is the Rwandan Defense Forces, or the military. I want to join them. And he joined the military, and all of a sudden they give him an assignment. He goes to the engineering regiment. They've sent him off to the engineering regiment. So to this day, John Dedoux his company, his regiment has now been like 17 bridges, dozens and dozens of homes for the needy. He just got sent to the South Sudan on a United Nations mission, peacekeeping mission there, representing Rwanda. And he says when he gets back from the South Sudan, God keep him safe. But when he gets back from there, he's going to build his mother the house of her dreams. And it all just goes to show that a boy at 8 years old who dreamt and had a dream of becoming an engineer, he gave up on it. God didn't, and God put it together. And through the whole thing, he tells in his own words, I have the whole testimony. The part of it's in the email that went out yesterday. If you didn't get it, let me know. I'll send it to you. He became a Christian. He went to Legacy, the precursor of Legacy Christian Academy. Because of Rivers Promise and our work there, he's become a Christian. And he says, thanks to God, Jimmy Rivers Promise. And I'm like, you can leave my name out of there. But it was very kind email. I sent it out yesterday. So if you think the power of sponsorship is not big, it is a huge, huge deal, my friends. It is a huge deal to sponsor a child. We have people that just sponsor the amount of a child. They don't want the pen pal relationship. It seems too much heavyweight. Other people love that relationship, the pen pals. And John Dedoux, sponsored by a lady in Wyoming. She listened to me, I think, on the iHeart station. I don't know how long she'd been listening to me, but I've talked to her once or twice and checked in on her just to make sure. Her husband went through some sickness, but she's always sponsored 4 kids. I think pretty much she got a second job in retirement, I think, just to sponsor these kids. And John Dedoux is one of them. And check that out. It's a fantastic story. And again, sometimes the fruit of your labor is not going to be known immediately. You don't plant something in the backyard and say, oh, look, I have a harvest here of tomatoes. No, it takes a while for those plants to grow. You got to keep the birds away. You got to do all that stuff. And that's how child sponsorship is. I've got I just put my I've sponsored, I don't have a sponsor now. I usually pick up a few that you drop off, and I start sponsoring them out of my own pocket, and I don't talk about that. But I just sent my boy I've sponsored since about 3rd grade, 2nd grade. I just sent him off to welding and mechanic school. The young lady that I was sponsoring, I just sent her off to trade school. So anyway, yeah, it's a great. John Dedoux is a fantastic kid. bottom line is a lot of these kids reaping a harvest that were seeds were planted when they were 8, 9 years old. So if you can talk about a sponsorship, feel free to do so. I know it's not in everybody's budget, but that's the power of sponsorship. So I'll do that tomorrow. We'll talk. We got a lot of things to get to tomorrow. We got tied up today. We got a lot of stuff on the sheet that didn't get to. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to go. You've got to go. Everybody get back to work. Everybody back to work, kids. It's time to get back to your jobs. Anybody have jobs? How many of you are watching? We got to take a survey. Where do you watch the show at? And where do you listen to the show at? Come prepared to class tomorrow and give a full report. Anybody have this on in your cubicle? I know my buddy Kevin, he works out of the Denver International Airport. He has it on his earbuds as he's the supervisor walking around out there. And occasionally he laughs like a madman or frowns or screams and whatever, and people say, what are you talking? What are you doing? Yeah, I'm listening to Lakey. Where do you listen to the show? Wherever you do, I appreciate it. Don't forget all of the podcast platforms have us out there. Go look, Lakey's Unleashed. And I mean this until we meet again tomorrow. riverspromise.org. God bless you. God bless America. Jimmy Lakey.